I think the growth of gaming right now is due to the accessibility of formats for advertisers now to take advantage of in games. Previously, what we saw is that game developers weren't really focused on adding advertising into those experiences because the primary function was really to create an amazing game and then to make sure that that game made money by spending a lot of money, obviously, on buying the actual title. Now what we're seeing is the new free-to-play model, and developers are more open to the idea of creating objects that people can buy, microtransactions, but also now the interactivity of brands and advertising in those experiences. The rise of third-party technologies has really allowed for that, which means that the developers themselves don't have to focus on the ad experience, but the third parties have allowed for the access of that inventory for advertisers now into those live experiences. So we've really started to see the shift because it's just become easier for advertisers to buy.
Do you think, looks like Microsoft is finally going to close its deal for Activision Blizzard, not knowing with where, do you think that's actually going to accelerate things, given Microsoft is pushing the advertising business?
I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting to see the impact of that. I think as we started to see a big shift in large platforms and more acquisitions being made, we're seeing the same thing in the gaming space. Now, a key component of that is not limiting the amount of people that will have access to a title, but actually the expansion of that. So I think the key thing and the key worry was the idea that certain titles would become inaccessible across a range of platforms, but we're not really seeing that as a key trend across the market. If anything, multi-device and multi-access is really important to its growth. But I do think that the importance of obviously the mobile gaming side of the Activision Blizzard business is really important. They set out a report a while back where over 50% of the money they make through advertising is through the mobile arm. So I think it makes a ton of sense that Microsoft was looking at this for its impact around its inventory, the IP that it has, the expansion of that IP into other platforms, but also the strength of the mobile business as well.
You've talked a little bit about this. You have a generation or two growing up where participation in media, especially in gaming, is part of the way they live their lives. How does that affect their outlook on media consumption and their expectations?
So I think what we're seeing with younger audiences around their expectations around participation is that media experiences aren't passive anymore. They've been in control. They've had AI optimizing their For You feeds for the way that they interact with media. The fact that, they can go into Roblox and socialize with their friends in an immersive environment really sets a new set of expectations, particularly for younger audiences in media. What we're starting to see now is that is seeping into other types of media and that expectations, the expansion of gaming, say for Netflix, even, it was a couple of years ago, but Bandersnatch and them testing out the idea of different types of narratives based on the interactivity of storytelling. I think we're going to see more and more of that type of interactivity expectation in mediums that were previously deemed passive into more active. And I think it also comes about from the expectation that, a lot of AAA titles really put you in the driver's seat of that narrative, and they are very cinematic. If you look at something like a Red Dead Redemption, it kind of feels like you're in a movie, but you're in a movie of your own making, and you get to experience that however you wish to. And this level of expectation for younger audiences has just been set from the off. They aren't used to experiencing TV on someone else's schedule. They aren't used to experiencing social media where you just get a passive feed that's not tailored to you. So we will continue to see the expectations of younger generations be participatory and them in charge. And I think more and more brands will need to start thinking about that in the way that they build out participatory experiences in the future.
Let's talk about that, because it's brands have been used to pushing messages, and now they've got to adapt to this audience that expects interactivity.
Yeah.
What do they need to do?
I mean, I think they need to work out so brands need to work through their own participatory strategies by working out what is their brand about? How do you experience that brand? What does your brand footprint feel like if you don't just get to passively see it or see a logo? If you get to experience it and have a conversation with it, what's your tone of voice? What type of information do you have? What does that customer experience look like for you? We'll start to see more technologies being able to function behind that more easily. So rather than needing maybe like a live agent, whether that is a live agent on the phone, a live agent on text, a live agent even in an immersive experience, AI is going to help us create those personalities and set those rules for us and have that interactivity on scale and en masse. So brands are really going to need to start thinking about sort of the full range of different type of emotion and even humanizing their brand in these experiences, because the way that consumers will expect to have conversations with brands will ultimately change. And this is going to be driven a lot more as well through things like generative AI, where you will need to set up rules and a range of different values for your brand. So when these experiences do get generated, it feels like it's coming from you as a brand and your own brand voice.
Lastly, we were talking a lot about the metaverse last year. There's a lot less talk about it lately. Even from Meta, are brands pulling back on their efforts? Are they still exploring this area? Do they need to keep pushing?
I think the word metaverse was really exciting and people got really behind it. And then I think the association with metaverse and, say, headset usage and so forth became very linked. And people assumed that if people weren't in a sort of Ready Player One environment, is it the metaverse? And I think the reality is that headsets right now are probably not still a scaled platform for many customers to feel like they want to go in and experience a brand. It will be interesting to see what the new Apple AR device will do. It's super expensive though, and it's probably not going to be the most seamless experience. I mean, I have my own thoughts. It'll probably be reminiscent of the Google Glass, sort of like alpha to market, where people paid to be part of an alpha. Will it be scaled? Maybe not, but it'll be a great learning for what that future will look like. I think when brands are thinking about, I guess, the metaverse or whether or not that's something that they want to invest in, they kind of need to remove the word out of it and just think about immersive experiences. So, Snap is still a very scaled AR platform. What are your immersive brand assets that you can build out for those environments, for try-on, for personality around, the type of face or adornments you might put on someone when they are scanning their own face? I think there's still a lot that brands can do in immersive media. And even when thinking about, Roblox or Fortnite, these social experiences, how do you show up as a brand in those? You shouldn't expect those two experiences to speak to each other. Fortnite and Roblox aren't necessarily going to speak to each other, but there are probably learnings that you can have across those immersive experiences that you could take from one to the other, but still know that they are different experiences, they are different play experiences, and you're going to need to have a custom strategy for both. So I think really this idea of an interoperable metaverse is something that people are slowly backing away from, because I do think that the business of business gets in the way of the idea that you can take an axe from Minecraft and then immediately port it over to Fortnite, and no one's going to have a problem with where you bought that. So I think that we're now starting to see some of the realities of the drawbacks of that interoperability, but I don't think it should slow down brands thinking about how they should show up in an immersive environment.